Beshem Hashem Nasi V'Nasliach. Tonight is like Ba'omer, Habalun Tova Tafshin Peh, and I was asked to give Divre Chizuk for Maran and Rabbeinu HaTorah Roshenu HaRav Mazuz Zeches Hadei Kadosh V'Ivracha. Obviously, when we have a Tzaddik among us, we don't appreciate till he is no longer among us. And this is very much applicable with HaRav Mazuz alav shalom. Among Qehilot Sephardim, he had a very special place for many reasons, and especially for Diktukei, for Haborot of Sephardi, his famous sefer for Tikkun Korim of Ish Masliach, that virtually almost every Beit HaKnesset has one, and many Bar Mitzvah boys, their father would get them Ish Masliach to be able to read his parasha, Bar Mitzvah parasha, in a correct manner. Now, it is important to mention that before he passed away, he put in his tzava that no one should give Divre Hesped for him until the first year. This is mentioned by HaRav David Yosef Shlita, and perhaps the reason is because during the first year, a neshama is being constantly judged, and tzaddikim want to refrain from getting credit from people because they are so anav. They know if they're getting credit that they don't deserve, they might be questioned. They might be questioned on those credits. So he said, no one should give hesped. So what we're going to say is not hesped, is divrei chizuk, are the words of encouragement for us, and that we should learn from his deeds and we should apply it in our lives. Now, he was born about 8 years ago from holy Rav, HaRav Mazuz's father, Zeches Hadei Bracha Hashem in Davam, that unfortunately he was killed by Goyim in Tunisia. His father. Yes. His father was killed by by Goyim in Tunisia. It was an act of anti-Semitism, unfortunately. And before Rab Mazuz alav shalom was born, his father had a difficult time having a child. And it came after many years of tefillot. I believe maybe after 17 years of tefillot, if I'm not mistaken. And all those tefillot contributed to the big tzaddik, HaRav Mazuz alav shalom. Now, HaRav Eliyahu Netaneli Shlita gave Divre Chizuk of him. So I'm going to focus on that, and also I'm going to add some of my own. Right? Thank you for joining us, Dr. So some of my own. HaRav Netaneli Shlita, HaRav Eliyahu Netaneli Shlita mentioned that virtually any area of Judaism he was expert in. Halacha, Midrash, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketubim, right? Gematriot, right? And when he established his yeshiva, famous yeshiva, Baruch Hashem is very successful, Kisei Rachamim, he made a condition among Bachurim that whoever comes here, right, needs to very much be careful about Diktukei and Havarot of the Sephardi Havara, of correctly being able to read, right, to HaTorah Kedusha, and that would help tremendously for tefillot, because many times we know, especially amongst Sephardim, right, the right pronunciations make a big difference. Right? If you say chet instead of chaf, it makes a big difference, right? Or if you say kuf instead of kuf, it makes a difference. So if you listen to his Divre Torah, and his way of pronunciation seems to be strange to us because we're not used to it, and that his way is the correct way.
So what do you do with the Sephardi, with the Ashkenazim? The T's, the S, and
yes, that's right. Well, they say when Mashiach comes, one of the things that will be verified is the correct HaRav. HaRav Ovadia Yosef Alav Shalom also used to say that the correct HaRav belongs to Iraqi Yehudim, to the Yehudim from Iraq. So he was very careful with that, and he made a condition that whoever comes to my yeshiva, says HaRav Eliyahu Netaneli, right, could only and should and could and perhaps we can say must get married, right, with someone who would not, with a lady who would not use pe'ah nochrit, no wigs, because among Rabbanim there is the big discussion. What is the right way of covering one's hair? We're talking about covering one's hair, right, for the obviously ladies, right? So, as we know, Sheitel, Pe'ah Nochrit is something that is relatively new, goes back to Russia around 200 years ago, that Russian government mandated that no lady is allowed to cover her hair, right? And so they came with such a mandate. So the Goyim didn't care. Goyim started, getting rid of their hats. We're talking about ladies, but the Jewish women, they cared. So back then they came up with this idea, out of not having any solutions, of using wigs, right? Using wigs. So that's when this minhag, this Ashkenazic minhag got started, and this is not something that Sephardim accepted upon themselves. So much so that we see in the Sifrei HaRav Ben Ishchai Alav Shalom, he did not mention of anything of a wig. Why? Because they didn't have it in Iraq. Nobody used their wigs in Iraq. So this is around 100 years ago, right? Nobody used one. Right? And this wig that they started having it back then was completely different than the wigs that we have these days, right? It was made from mostly plastic, or even if it was regular hair, right? It was not something that looked like our today's wigs that you can see. This is, today's wigs are so real, and it makes a person much more, good looking, beautiful than the others. So going into this weak issue, HaRav Netaneli went deep into it. And he said, it used to be in the back days that you would distinguish between, wig and a real hair, right? And these days, you see, wig can add to the beauty more than before. I personally know somebody in our community that before marriage, right, coming from Iran, right, looked different. After marriage, she decided to get a blondie wig, and men came to her husband saying that your wife looks more beautiful than when she was unmarried with that blondie, wig, and that is very disrespectful. That's not senute, right? And a lady needs to be very careful not to cause hirhurim thoughts among men. Lo aleinu chas v'shalom. And HaRav Eliyahu Netaneli mentioned that this is something that unfortunately is delaying Mashiach. Lo aleinu. Yes, go ahead.
Rabbi, the problem is problem of siniyut, or the problem is problem of avodah zarah?
So there is both. It's not only siniyut. Also, HaRav mentioned that today these wigs that they say they have hechsher and they come from places that they call it European hair, it says that that is impossible and that is not, that cannot be relied upon. Why? Because the process need to be seen from A to Z. A to Z, making sure that this hair is not cut from Indians, right, hair, right? Then it's sealed in the box with the seal of mashkiach, and this mashkiach, this kosher supervisor, right, needs to make sure that this box is not opened all the way till it gets to the factories, that they take the hair and they put it together, right? Making sure that it's not switched with inexpensive Indian hairs. That apparently, those Indians that they come to India, to their places of idol worship, and they cut it for the sake of idols. There is a rabbi in New Jersey, right? Rabbi Aharon Shapiro Shlita, I believe his name is Aharon Shapiro, that he hired a group of researchers to go and question the Indian ladies. What is the purpose of you giving this hair, cutting it, right? Is it that you should be receiving blessings from your idols, or no, you just do it because of the custom? And more than 70%, the statistics are out there, right, said because we want blessings from our false, from our idols, the idols, right? So that obviously comes to tell you that this hair is dedicated for the idols, and it's asur, it's forbidden to use that which is dedicated to the idols. And according to Zohar HaKadosh, this causes Shekhinah to depart from one's dwelling. So HaRav Eliyahu Netaneli says this is not only amongst Sephardim. Even big Ashkenazi Rabbanim, they mentioned this. HaRav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, alav shalom, he was completely against it. And he said, many years ago, maybe 45 years ago, he said when there was a big Magafah in society, or maybe back in 1945, maybe, I'm not exactly sure. Was it 45 years ago or 1945? They went to him and they asked him, and this is what HaRav Eliyahu Netaneli mentioned. They asked him, Kivod HaRav, what should we do? The Yehudim are unfortunately dying. And he said, this is because there is lack of seniut. And he mentioned lack of seniut means using Pe'ah Nochrit wig. Now, switching from this area, going to HaRav Mazuz, alav shalom, HaRav Eliyahu Netaneli mentioned that he was so occupied with making sure, that the shiurim are prepared for his avrechim in his yeshiva, Kisei Rachamim, right? But nevertheless, he always answered his letters that he sent to him to ask questions, halakhic questions or other things. Right? He would always be available. Right? He was very much involved with HaRav Ovadia Yosef, alav shalom.
Very close.
They were very close together. In fact, HaRav Ovadia Yosef, alav shalom, mentioned in his speeches that many times he quoted HaRav Mazuz, and also in his Sefarim you see he quoted him and his writings, right? That also he was very baki, so he quoted him. Now his son HaRav Mazuz son Le'avdil ben Chaim mentioned that HaRav Mazuz alav shalom wrote 40 Sefarim, published 40 Sefarim, and there is 60 more Sefarim, Kitvei Yad, that are unpublished.
Wow.
Right? So that tells you what a big Gaon he was. Right? They say that about 40 years ago, one night, late at night, after Limud HaTorah in Yeshiva, Kolel, he comes home and he finds that the door to his home was locked and he didn't have the key, he forgot the key. So he decided, he had to get to sleep. He was very tired. Obviously, it was very late at night. He decided to somehow get into the home. And he saw a window open, so he went to the third floor, and he tried to go from, or maybe jump from a little area to go into the window, and he lost his control and he fell down. He fell down from third floors, and for hours it was not discovered that he fell down, till they came and they discovered him. They took him to hospital, and doctors told him there is not much that we can do, right? Apparently he fell down so badly that his feet went into his chest, and he needed many surgeries to recover, right? And the doctor came and said, what should we do for you to help you overcome this pain that you have? And he said, ask my Talmud to come. And his Talmud came, and he started conversing, giving Divre Torah back and forth with his Talmud. And Baruch Hashem, Nisim and Niflaot. The miracles happened. Apparently, there was this Kashya of Abaye and Rava in Tosfot, right, that he had an answer for, right? And if I'm not mistaken, either Abaye or Rava, I think Abaye came to his dream and he said, you're going to leave, right? Because you were able to answer this Kashya, you're going to leave, and that's what happened. He lived another 40 years, but these 40 years were filled with difficulties, a lot of difficulties and isurim. And he said that they should not write on his mateva the name of his sefarim, and that they should only write that he was bad isurim apparently, and that he was the Menaseh, or the one who organized his yeshiva Kisei Rachamim. What exactly was the death, the reason of his passing? I'm not sure.
What happened in 40 years? So Yisurim in 40 years.
No, a lot of Yisurim, he had to go back and forth to doctors.
Health condition.
Health condition.
Very serious health condition.
A lot of serious conditions he had, perhaps due to that fall. He had a lot of, yes. Now, it's interesting, in one of his writings, right? Now, first of all, I don't want to forget mentioning this, that he was, he passed away 8 days after his birthday. Our Chachamim teach us, if a person is born and passes to the Olam Haba on the exact day, that's a big siman that he was a Sadiq, like Moshe Rabbeinu, whose birthday and the day of passing was the same day. Now, there are those who say if it's close, also that's an indication, right? Now,
like David HaMelech.
Like David HaMelech.
The same.
Right. Now, so he passed away on Chaf. So this Chaf of Iyar is going to be his Shalishim. Now, in the Pirush on Tehillim, right, Perek Vav, Pasuk Yud Aleph, Yevushu, Yehavu Me'od, Kol Oyevei, Yeshuvu Rega. He says, Rashi Tevot, Kol Pasuk, Yom Chaf Iyar. So the Rashi Tevot is, of this Pasuk, is the Yom Chaf Iyar. Right? That's the Pasuk in Perek Vav, Tehillim, Pasuk Yud Aleph. And this is what he explains. Ve'eneni yodea lamahu romez. I don't know what this is referring to. Now, what this refers to is the Chaf Iyar, which is the Shaloshim of himself. So there are those Rabbanim. This is actually one of the big Rabbanim in Eretz Israel mentioned. Perhaps he knew that his Shulushim would be Chaf Iyar, right? And he was able to see it in this pasuk, right? And so he knew that when he was going to Olam Haba, is going to be in the eternal world. Now Saddiqim, they get a hint. We're going to later read from Zohar HaKadosh that they get a hint that when they are about to pass to Olam Haba. Now there's a lot to mention about HaRav Mazuz, Zecher Sadir V'Kadosh Livracha. I want to conclude with another important lesson to learn from him, that he was very Chazak in Sefadi Minhagim, Minhag Abutenu Biyadenu, that all the Sephardim, they need to keep their Minhag. All Achenu Ashkenazim, they need to keep their Minhagim alive, right? And he always he was always very much into empowering the future generation. His yeshiva is known, Kiser Achamim, that was one of the only yeshivot that would train the Bachurim to give shiur kelali, right? So it wasn't the job of the Rav to give shiur only, he would give shiur as well, right? Every Bachur would give shiur, right? Every Bachur.
That's
So
really important.
that's very important to empower, right? To allow the Bachurim to read. And not only that, in his yeshiva, they encouraged that the Bachurim should write Sefarim. Bachurim should write Sefarim.
You see guys 4 or 5 years come back from yeshiva, you're like, give a darash.
Right.
They can't speak.
Right.
They only read.
You see, yeah, thank you, Rabbi Yehuda, for mentioning. Yeah, you see,
Very important.
people come from yeshivot and they can't give a speech.
No,
Right.
they
So
don't
it's
know
very
how to talk.
important to empower the future generation, the future leaders among Am Yisrael. And in his yeshiva, they did it perfectly. They did a very good job. HaRav Nisim Yagen, HaRav Nisim, huh?
The Sal.
Zasal, right. They say he was his Talmid.
Was it?
No, not him, no, somebody else then, I'm mistaken. Not Yagen. HaRav Igal, what is HaRav Igal's?
Yigal Cohen.
HaRav Igal Cohen Shlita, yes, thank you. HaRav Igal Cohen Shlita, who is very big, giving a lot of chizuk, especially to the soldiers in Eretz Israel. He was his Talmid.
Yeah.
He was his Talmid. Right?
He brings many people to Shuba. Rabbi Cohen, Yigal Cohen.
HaRav Igal Cohen,
Yeah,
yeah, does a lot of, he does
Teshuva.
wholesale teshuva, wholesale.
Yeah.
Wholesale teshuva.
He's Persian.
He's originally Persian, right?
Yeah.
He speaks Farsi.
Yes. So it's very important. Be'ezrat Hashem, again, there's a lot to say, and we want to give opportunity to other limud tonight. This scholar Chasod, Be'ezrat Hashem, his zechut should be a protection for all Am Yisrael, and Be'ezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help us that we learn from his Torah, ללמוד וללמד, לשמוע ולעשות, ונאמר אמן.
Amen.